All right, it looks like we're ready to start assembling. Now, I will tell you, I'm going to do the assembly on this, but I'll be taking it back apart because I want to replace these two bearings. And it looks like it's going to take a while. For some reason, my bearings are stuck at the USPS in Sacramento, California. They've been there for 3 days, so I don't know when the bearings are going to come. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and put these in and go ahead and reassemble everything else. And I won't come back to show you that because it's going to work just the same no matter what. All right, so we're going to start off by reassembling the rotor. Okay, so we'll move the frame out of the way, come down to the rotor assembly. Now, I will tell you, I was not able to break this screw loose. I had onto this thing with a pair of vice grips trying to crank it, and I finally stopped because I was afraid that I would snap the screw off. The reason I wanted to take the screw out was to get this roller moving, and the roller's turning just fine now. I soaked it in WD-40 and kept spraying it and soaking it and rotating it and rubbing a rubber band down the side to get it moving, and it's working fine now. So since the roller is working, there's no reason for me to take this screw out. I'm going to leave it alone because I don't want to take a chance on breaking it and ruining this entire assembly. Okay, hang on just a second. I've decided I want to put down a cloth to work on so that I'm not scratching up the paint on this repainted rotor. So we're going to do this work on top of a cloth. Okay, so we're going to set this. Before we do that, we're going to take a little bit of grease and put it right here so that this spring can slide easily inside this cavity. All right. And we're going to set the spring in first. Set it right into this hole, which I've covered up with grease. Now I can't see it. There it is. Okay. And then I'm going to pull this over just a little bit right there so the spring will sit down in that cavity right there. And it's going to want to pop out now that it's greased. Okay, so we're going to have to kind of push that in as we go. Okay, we're going to set that down in there like so. Now that's going to want to pop out of there. And because it's going to want to pop out, what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and set the plate back on. Okay. And we're going to screw that down so that it will hold the spring in place. All right, now this isn't fully aligned. There we go. Move it over a little bit and tighten it down some more. Okay, so now that's holding the spring down. If we take a screwdriver and push ever so slightly right here, like that, there. Now the spring is down in that gap. I'll lift this back up and around. See this boss right here? That has to go into this slot. And the way it sits when you first set it on there is that's going to want to sit into this notch over here. What you have to do once you get that spring into that hole is you have to go ahead and rotate that boss over into that slot and then get this to align and put the screw in. If you don't have that boss over in that side, it's not going to align. And I don't have it properly aligned. It's trying to fight me. Okay. Set it up. Here we go. Let's do it again. Spring goes into the hole. Okay, once you screw it down a little bit, that boss, it's got a shoulder on that screw right there, and you got to get that shoulder to drop down a little bit. But then hold the whole thing down because it's going to want to pop up and let that spring out. Okay. don't have to tighten it all the way down yet, but most of the way down, and then see if you are free to turn. And if you are, go ahead and tighten it down the rest of the way. Okay. Now with that in place, we can go back to the other side. Now remember I told you that this bell wire in the previous video is sprung. See how that's out away from there? We need to bend this bell wire so that that fits flush up against there like that. Okay, so let's bring it out here away from the rest of it, and we'll go ahead and pull it down, bend it. Okay, there we go. Now is it forcibly up against there? If it is, there, we want it to just be like that. Okay, not too far out, not too far in. You got a small gap right there. Okay, that's going to give you the right tension on that spring or on that bell wire. Okay. This is a slam bell, so there's not going to be some kind of fancy trip assembly to make this trip. Okay, once we've got it all assembled where it's operating without lubricant, we're going to come back and add a little lubricant. And it's not going to hurt to put a little bit right here where the bell wire goes through. All right, the rotor is assembled. Now we're going to move on to the body. Okay, the first part we're going to want to put together is going to be, no, the first thing we're going to want to do is reassemble the anti-reverse arm. And if you remember when I took this apart, I had a whole lot of trouble getting this screw out. Well, I have since gotten that cleaned up and lubricated, and it turns much easier than it was. All right, we're going to turn that, take the screw out, pull the cap off. You got two washers. Okay, one washer, if you look, has this rectangular shape to it with the curved ends, and the other one is a round washer. Well, the one you're going to want to put on first is going to be the one with this shoulder, the rectangular shape, and then it goes the round one. But first, this comes in from this side. All right, where it fits through the cavity, we're going to put just a little bit of grease right there, and we'll put just a little bit at the other end. There's no need to grease the whole thing. We're going to slide this in, slide it down. Okay, and now if you look, you've got this end here with this wire, or this hole for the spring. Okay, the spring is this hooked assembly right here. That hook is going to hook from underneath that post. Let's see if I can get this into the light properly. Let's do it with a pair of, let's see here. Now, let's go ahead and do it. Okay, that hook is going to hook up underneath there like that, and then rotate like so. So that when you sit this down in there like that, everything's going to be fine, except that you're not going to have this end of the wire in that hole yet. So we're going to do that in a little bit. But let's go ahead to this other end. We're going to put on the rectangular in center washer. Then we're going to put on the round washer. Then we're going to slide on the control lever assembly. Okay. Like so that it can go this way and this way. And then we're going to put this screw back in. All right, now we still have to get this spring back in. And for that, we're going to need either a pair of hemostats or a pair of needle nose. I'm going to opt for the hemostats. There. Took me long enough. Okay. Now it's reinstalled. Now you're going to want to put a drop of oil where that pivots in both locations so that it doesn't wear through the spring due to friction. All right. With that done, we're going to assemble the pinion gear. And this pinion gear's been through a little bit, but I think it's okay. It's got a little tarnish in there, but aside from that, I think it seems to be okay. So we're going to come back. We're going to put grease on the pinion gear. We will now install the bearing, and it doesn't matter which way it goes. It's the same either way. It's not a sealed bearing. All right, with that done, I can slide this in. Well, almost. Let's put a little bit of grease right here on this surface, because that's going to ride inside this boss right here. And the only lubrication it's going to get is whatever grease we put on it right now. Okay, slide the bearing down. All right, we're going to give this bearing one more healthy dose of oil before we close it up. All right, it's been sitting for a few days since I oiled it last. Okay, now it's going to come this plate, and it's going to sit down on here like so, like that. And it will have 3 screws that go in. Okay, with that done, we're ready to slide this into place. All right, we'll put a very, very light coating of grease on here just to help this slide on and off better. Like so. Then we're going to put this anti-reverse lever back on, or pawl. And I've bent it in just a little bit so that it can fit better and hold snugly to this. Now I'm going to slide that over like so. Well, hang on. Let's get this out of the way. There we go. Slide this inside like so. Now I've got to get that there. With that slid over top of that cog right here, we are now ready to put this screw back in. Put our screw back in. Now make sure that that shoulder goes down inside the lever. It's trying to bind right now. There we go. Got it to go inside. Screw it all the way down. Okay, we're going to put a drop of oil here and here, so that now this will rotate. This anti-reverse lever is worn. It's actually missing the tips off of it, and I don't have a replacement for it. So I bent it down a little bit, hoping that it would be enough. I think I'm going to have to do it again. Okay, here's your anti-reverse, fully functional. The next thing we're going to reinstall is going to be the crosswind block. I'll go ahead and grease the teeth. I'll set that down in there, like so. And then we're going to install this screw. Okay, and it's really not that bad. Put a little grease on the face of it, because the crosswind block is going to ride there. The next thing we're going to put on is the rotor assembly. And it's going to slip on. Got to look at these flats right here and slip it on to those flats. There we go. And now reinstall the nut. Okay, next part we're going to want to install is going to be the crosswind block. We will grease up inside it where that post rides, right there. And then we'll grease up the face of it. And then right along here, that crosswind block is going to ride on this rail. And it's going to ride on this rail over here. Okay, so we're going to put some grease on that rail. And we'll slip the crosswind block in, like so, under that rail and onto that rail. But hang on, before we do, we're going to move that post all the way to the rear and set this down over top of that post, like so. Next thing to go in is going to be this axle shaft assembly. We're going to slide it in, like so. And we're going to always see that notch right there. We're going to line that notch with this hole in the back. At least that's our plan. There we go. A notch aligned with the hole. And we're going to put the screw in right there. Okay. All right, that's nice. Now we're going to take the one of these bearings. It's not, I might have to take all that out to get this bearing in. Let's see if the bearing will slide in around it. And it did. Good. There goes the bearing in place. All right. This is our main gear, and the main gear is going to go in now. This part here is going to slide into that bearing. We're going to put a little bit of grease on the edge of that just to help it slide into the bearing. We're going to put some on the Crosswind intermediate right here, because that's where that's going to intersect with the Crosswind block and drive the axle shaft up and down. And now we're going to come back and put some on the teeth of this gear. Now this gear has been scrubbed like 6 times to get all of the nastiness out of it. I cleaned it with just about everything in the world, WD-40, and my final, and dipped it in acetone, and I put it into alcohol, and it was still feeling really gritty. So the last and final on it was I put it in Dawn dishwashing detergent, and then scrubbed it real good, and that finally came out to where it no longer felt gritty. So I'm thinking it's probably going to be okay. The teeth of it look good. They don't show any excess wear. So I'm happy that that's the way that's going, I think. All right, now we're going to take and slide the main gear in to that axle, or to that, there we go, like so. Slide it into the bearing. All right, now on this side, there's a shim washer. Okay, and the shim washer goes right here. If you look at the back side of this main gear, you can see that it's pitted. That was from the saltwater corrosion that got in. It didn't seem to hurt the teeth, but it sure kind of pitted up the back of this. And I looked for a new main gear and was unable to find one. So we had to redo this one with this original main gear, which didn't make me happy, but that's the way it's going to have to be. I was able to find bearings for it, but not a main gear. Okay, now this is the one that's all beat up. So it doesn't turn as well as it should, but it does still turn. And we'll go ahead and put it in for now. And when the new bearings come in, I'll go ahead and take them out, swap them out. Okay, now goes the side case on. All right. And we're going to set our 3 screws in place. And I really should have stuffed cotton down in the holes of those when I did them, keep the paint from getting down inside, but I didn't. So I'm going to have to work it around a little bit to get those to go back in properly. All right, whatever you do, don't make the same mistake I did. If you're going to bead blast something down or sandblast it, make sure to cover up the holes when you do. I ended up with sand down inside there that got into the oils in there and then packed in and didn't want to come back out. If you can pack it with like the end of a Q-tip or something, or maybe twist up a piece of tape and stick it down in the hole prior to bead blasting it down, that's going to work a lot better. Keep that sand out of there. It took me about 25 minutes to clean that sand out of there. And I had to do it using a needle or a pin and an ice pick. But I did finally get it all cleaned out. got it to that point. And we're ready to put the handle back on. So it's already been cleaned up. And slide it through. Start to screw on the other side. And that hex piece there should fit down inside like that. And then you can just screw it down. Okay, once it's tight, set the handle properly over here. Go ahead, tighten down the knob on the handle. All right. Now, go ahead and put this side in, this cap on. Like so. And you saw me take this apart, but I'm going to pop it apart real quick. And we will put it back together. Okay. The way it's going to go is fabric washer, keyed washer, fabric washer, eared washer, fabric washer, keyed washer. Now these have been cleaned up. They are tarnished, but they're nice and smooth. So we're going to start off with the fabric washer. We're going to put just a little bit of grease on it and rub it in good. Drop it in. Drop in the keyed washer. Take the next fabric washer. Put a little bit of grease on it. Not a lot. Okay, and we drop in the eared washer, and the ears drop into those two slots right there. Put a little more grease on the last fabric washer. Drop it in. Drop in the last keyed washer. And in goes the lock assembly, the lock spring. Don't let it fly out. All right, that's done. Take that. Well, before we do that, let's put just a little bit of oil on our clicker here. You don't know how many times I've seen these things damaged due to just being rusty. All right. Slide the rotor on. Spin it around a little bit until it drops on, which I think it already has. Tighten down the drag knob. Okay, tighten it down a little more. Yep, I can't even turn that. Loosen a little bit. Okay, drag is good. There we go. Let's see if I can. Okay, well, aside from needing a new, something just messed up. And I have no idea what that would be. Interesting, it was working fine. All right, I found the problem. What's happened is the anti-reverse pawl, remember I told you the ends of it were worn down? Well, what's happened, it's not long, their arms aren't long enough to stay up on there where they belong, and it has dropped off. And now it's catching like that. Okay, so I'm going to pop this off of here. And I'm not sure what I'm going to be able to do about it at all, if anything. All right, you've seen what was causing my failure in this, and that is that this tab right here is worn off to the point where it's dropping down underneath the ratchet here and causing it to bind up. So, how am I going to fix that? Well, this part is not available anywhere. And they have one on eBay that looks identical to this, but I have no way of knowing what the length of this part is to see if I could maybe modify it and put it on here. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to make a new spring squeeze for this pawl. And what I'm going to use is this paper clip. Okay, I'm going to grind off the rivet. Okay, I gave up on trying to modify that dog, and instead what I did is I made a spring for it. And if you look at the spring, I'll go ahead and lift it off of here. Okay, I made this spring, and what it does is I removed the squeeze clip off of here since it wasn't doing any good anymore. And you take this piece and you hook it under here, bring it around, hook it past that head of that screw, and then all you have to do is grab hold of the spring, pull it around, lock it down. There we go. Now we have a spring for the anti-reverse dog that I believe will stay on there pretty much forever. I don't think it'll ever come off. Less powered. Yeah, that took a little of it out. There we go. Okay, so let's reassemble this and get it back together. Good, good. Rotor. Rotor back on. Makes me almost wish I hadn't bought new bearings for it, but I have. All right. So there you have the GS9, Daiwa GS-90, and fully functional, ready to go, except for changing out this nasty line that it's got on it. And it's not the prettiest reel, but it sure looks a lot better than it did when we started, doesn't it? So, and it's fully functional. It really has a very loud anti-reverse because of that new spring I added. That does add a lot of extra tension there. But that's a nice reel now. It's ready to go fishing again. It's there's a slight bit of wobble in the top from that crosswind block being a little bit worn in the center. But aside from that, it's a good reel, very functional, ready to go fishing. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you didn't like it, that's okay. Hit the dislike button. But please tell me what it is you didn't like. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to Young Martin's Reels. And I'd like to see you on the flip-flop. See you again. Bye. It dawned on me that I hadn't shown you guys the operational bail. So there you go. Now you've seen the bail trip also.